Hey, good morning, everyone. For us, we think that semantic technology can be applied in many, many ways. But my company, Circos.com, is focused on providing a bridge between social media towards increased revenue, customer satisfaction, and loyalty for businesses. And so, for us, I'm in absolute agreement with Jacob in that we don't think the semantic web exists in totality today, although there are some semantic technologies that you can use to apply to your business planning processes to give you a better insight into what you can do to be able to manage the public perceptions that are out there about your brand. So let's start with looking at the brand marketers as an example. In the past, brand marketers in an organization have worked very closely with advertising agencies, and they're really able to, for example, control what the brand messaging should be, all the way down to the type of advertisement placements and brand messaging channels that they are able to communicate what the brand stands for. Typically, these are traditional media channels, which is one-to-many broadcast through press, radio, television, and so on and so forth, and print as well. But what's happened with the social media phenomenon that we're seeing on the web today is that user-generated content is actually hijacking the brand story and fragmenting the brand storytelling in a very real way. So what used to look like a perfect picture from a brand perspective, now when you add the user-generated content becomes a little fuzzier in nature. And as Jacob demonstrated earlier, there's all sorts of additional sentiments that the customers will effectively just prescribe to their specific experience about your brand. Now, there are a lot more customers out there than there are brand marketers. So they're going to generate a lot more content about your brand. And one of the things that the semantic technology can do is to provide a linkage between your corporate aspirational messages to what's the unsolicited, raw, and organic feedback that is occurring on a daily basis, and enable you to be able to bridge the two to make your brand more relevant, more credible, and more current as of today. So that's one way in which semantic web can become an interesting market research virtuous feedback loop for any marketing organization whereby their customers are talking about them online. Now, one of the things is that, so I understand what my brand messaging is, let's say that I look at social media, I'm able to tie the two together. How do I now increase the awareness and perception of my brand? So that typically is the functional role of an online marketer in an organization. And in this scenario right here, the paradigm is really all about the text box. Google has done a phenomenal job in terms of making the single text box useful for consumers. And it is a paradigm that is pervasive in all of our digital experiences. Just think about the way you access information. Probably 80%, 90% of the time, it's through entering information or entering what you want into a single text box. And for the travel industry, let's say, we looked at the hotel, the impact of the single text box search on hotel bookings for a supplier as well as for the online travel agencies. And you see that the search experience is becoming a bigger and bigger percentage of how people actually get to these sites where you're able to conduct transactions. So what this means is that for those of you that are suppliers and online travel agencies and meta search sites to some extent, the participation in the consumer conversation is starting to move further and further downstream, in that consumers are deciding what to purchase before they even get to your transactional engines. So this could be an opportunity, actually, when you consider the fact that the number of keywords in Google search has steadily increased. So now there are 4. Now, if you can think about it from a consumer perspective, if I'm looking for hotels in Berlin, that takes 2 words, hotels, Berlin. What are the other 2 words that you think people are going to effectively add to that search query? It could be things that are very aspirational, for example, hip, it could be affordable, things that basically are the types of criteria words and preferential words that you describe when you talk to your friends about what you might want. The second factoid there about Google searches that are unique in a month, 20 to 25%. That basically shows you how long tail that query is, or those types of queries are. And for brands that effectively understand how they can be discovered via these ways, it's going to be an incredible conversion opportunities for them because the number of customers that they would be attracting through this methodology would be highly qualified. So for online marketers, what we typically work with them on is a framework in which to help them think about the different channels in which consumers will discover them. So over on the row headers, you have the pervasive sites, TripAdvisor, Google, some other travel sites. And then across the top are the different canonical query types, if you will, that consumers are looking for when they enter into their research process. The first one, which is the one that's most familiar for hoteliers, has to do with brand plus location. So for example, Ibis, Singapore. And in this specific scenario right here, the consumer mindset is that they're verifying to see if the experience that they're going to find is backed up in terms of what their expectations are. Or in some cases, it could be comparison shoppers that already have decided I'm going to select these 5 brands and I'm going to go in and do singular search to understand what the social web has to say about the individual brand so that I can make the right decision. The second category really is what we call category plus location. So that's hotel, Berlin. And in this scenario right here, we're looking at brand changers or possible new visitors to a location. And in this specific channel here, as a brand, you have to be very conscious about how you're doing vis-a-vis your competitors in terms of the key drivers. Because it is really, in a way, you have to stand out so you're able to win the new customers. And then finally, the final category is really the category that correlates with the 20 to 25% unique searches, which is what we consider category plus preferences. So that would be hip hotels in Berlin, hotels in Singapore that are family friendly and has a nice view, business hotels with great Wi-Fi access in Munich. Those types of queries tends to point to a specific set of consumers that have special needs or that are very savvy. They know exactly what they're looking for. And when your brand effectively meets what their criteria are through the testimonials that exist in the social web, the conversion rate tends to be very high. Now, let's move to the funnel, because there's entry points directly into these, but it is also a possibility that a consumer in their research process will start with the category and the location, and then maybe put some preferences in there, and then finally doing some research on the brand. It is absolutely important for the online marketers today to really understand what semantically the social media is telling consumers about their brand so that they're able to massage the channels and to optimize it for conversion. Now let's look at the revenue managers as the last group of people who effectively could potentially be affected by the semantic technology. Now, this chart here basically is a chart that we do for our clients. We look at a historical comparison of whatever benchmark it is that exists in your organization, whether it has to do with revenue or booking or rates. And then we distill from the perception that exists in the same period down to a dashboard that allows you to be able to see exactly how your key drivers are being perceived today and vis-a-vis your competitive set. This gives revenue managers a tremendous amount of flexibility to be able to understand how to adjust rates, how to potentially create sales and promotion packages. So this is one way in which you can use the semantic technology to be able to drive your business numbers. So in summary, the semantic web, I agree, doesn't necessarily exist today, but there are technologies that will help you to connect social media to help businesses increase revenue, satisfaction, and loyalty, especially in the travel industry. Thank you.